the game has begun. And so let's go into game number 2 on Odyssey.
It is QXC's choice. We have him as the purple Terran. Probably my least favorite color. I'll go into that later. But it is QXC in the mid right-hand corner. In the mid left-hand corner, we have TSL Polt as the red Terran. Purple just seems to be so hard to look at on the minimap. I always miss things because it blends into the background. That's the only reason why I hate it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for StarCraft 2, I would love purple.
Well, I mean, it's also tough because if your opponent's green and you have green on the mini map sometimes, and it's like tough to tell because you're like, oh, is that part of me? And that's why I don't like green. But of course, if you turn on team colors, it fixes that.
That's what you should always do.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started playing StarCraft, I was like, oh, that pylon is mine. And then I got, oh, those 4 zealots are mine. Oh wait, my zealots are killing my own probes, and I'm like, oh gosh. And that was like my first game of StarCraft 2. So. But we're not talking about Protoss versus Protoss. We're talking about Terran versus Terran. In the top left, we have the red Terran. His name is Polt. And you actually already did that, did you? Okay, I realized. I'm sorry, Andre. I apologize.
No, it's cool, bro. They're doing the same build, so we got filler to do.
We got filler to do. Odyssey.
Let's talk about Odyssey because I think that's one of the most important
things. It was
a
really good book in 9th grade by Homer, the poet.
You're crazy. Anyway, Odyssey is a map, again,
that's an actual book, Andre.
I know.
I know you didn't pay attention to English class. All you did was you lived for math.
I lived for StarCraft, actually. You know, Odyssey is one of those maps that it's pretty far away. Well, it's also very easy to defend it with a single bunker. I think that's why we see the builds that we're seeing right now. Not only that, you can place some sort of unit at this watchtower and see any sort of Reaper openings coming. So you can position units accordingly, and you will be able to defend things. So no imminent threat in this beginning stage, so that's why we see gasless fast expansions from both of these players. On top of that, I want to say you want to supercharge your gas. That's why we also see a double refinery follow-up for both of these players, and it's because siege tanks are so important. You want to cover as much area because the more area you're able to cover or actually apply to your the more damage you're able to apply to your opponent, the safer it is to get these expansions. The expansions are actually pretty open all over the place. They're susceptible to drops, they're susceptible to pushes, so you want to actually be doing damage to your opponent and forcing them to have defensive positions rather than just having the macro game. It makes for a much tougher game if you're just defensive the whole time.
Polt is going for a late factory, squeaking a second barracks between them. And I haven't actually seen this build before. Out of Polt necessarily. I've seen him do a couple of interesting variations of, you know, like early game factory after the command center when he was playing against Thorzane at this DreamHack. But what do you think Polt's up to at this point?
It could be some sort of interpretation of, not interpretation, that's the wrong word, just some super fast medevac drop.
Oh.
I can definitely see that coming.
He's getting stim.
Yeah, why would you need all this stuff super fast?
Yeah.
And the obvious answer would be for
a really fast drop.
Reactor starport.
This is kind of a throwback. This used to be really popular back when a lot of TVT was based off the initial positioning, and you're able to get drops. There was maps like Tal'Dun and Malta where you could sneak in medevacs really easily, which is still in our map pool. But Odyssey, how do you think this map will play out specifically for Odyssey?
Wait, say it again.
So how do you think this build will play out for Odyssey? Do you think it's going to be effective?
Well, we were wrong. That's why I was like so taken aback by what is going on. Polt is not going for a drop. He's going for siege tank. It looked like it was Banshees. I think he might have gone, or might have thought he was going for Banshees, but then switched it because his opponent scanned him. That's very possible.
Well, I mean, the big thing is
really tough. That's really
there's
tough
a lot of mind games with opening up in that way. There's a lot of guessing too. I mean, even listening to Muslim's interview saying, especially the first unit out of the starport, it's always a huge guessing situation. You can see that Polt is going for the Viking. Now, he didn't necessarily scout that much. He did scan and saw QXC, but he is going to assume it's a Banshee. Now, QXC is going for cloaked Banshee and following with a second factory. Very, very cool. Actually, I like this one.
He's going for mech.
Yeah, following it up
very
with
obvious.
mech.
It will be a little dangerous, I think, at one point where he doesn't have all of his production up. He needs to get his third factory up ASAP. I think 3 factories are just enough to actually defend against all the different shenanigans that your opponent can do. From here, I like the Viking response to what Polt saw. I think Polt actually scanned, saw what his opponent was doing, saw some sort of, Banshee play. Of course, he had the tech lab right next to it, the factory lifted off, or the barracks lifted off, and he knew, okay, your starport's going there. So I like what he's doing, just intercepting this very efficiently, but he has to make sure his units are in place. Obviously, they're not, because this Banshee's getting in here, and it will be able to get some SEV kills. This Viking is super far out of place. Ooh.
Well, the Marines do stim from Polt, and that's actually a big discovery from QXC, saying, oh, he got stim immediately. It's not combat shield. Sometimes combat shield the first.
Wow.
Ooh, little haphazard scan, only able to pick off a little bit. Great control from QXC, utilizing the corner of the side of the map to be able to protect it. Polt, his Viking is also out into the field, trying to see if he can zone off, and the turret finishes as well. So QXC's Banshee should not be that effective. Great job here from Polt. Didn't really lose that many SCVs.
We'll see if this drop does any damage. A lot of SCVs are actually being picked off here, but he loads up immediately. 2 tanks and 2 Hellions are there to protect him. So a nice effort by both of these players, I think, with the harass in general. QXC does get ahead just because he baited one of those scans. His opponent obviously didn't have to scan out, so he gets... Oh, he picked it off?
Yeah, he picked it off, It was like one of those things, he managed to corner the Banshee immediately, but... And it's smart by Polt, because he says, oh, I see the Banshee, I see the cloak, I know I can drop him, because he doesn't have... the Vikings out usually to protect against Banshee. So Polt able to kill off some of those workers, and all of a sudden able to put a lot of pressure, but still, that Banshee getting out of position as well. But nonetheless, QXC is able to get a pretty significant Harvester lead.
53 to 44. Not only that, he has, 2 scans now that he baited, which is okay for the investment that you put into it. 150 minerals, 100 gas. Is it 150? Yeah, it is. I don't know why, for some reason I thought 130. Nothing is 30 minerals.
It's really funny. It's like after tax on Odyssey, and then obviously all the civilians living there are like, no man, taxes are outrageous, and it's like, well, that's why you should have voted for this other political party that I won't talk about. Anyways, you see QXC is what? Don't look at me like that. Yeah. Looks like we see that QXC is moving out here with a lot of Hellions now. If it wasn't obvious that he was going for mech, it is now, as Blue Flame did finish. And there is a lot of units, and I like the incorporation of a couple Marauders with concussive shells as well.
Obviously, they give him the ability to really bust down if ever these siege tanks are out of position or in the middle of sieging. So I like, as you said, I like the incorporation of them also tracking down some of these Hellions. The Hellions are actually pretty critical because they're a good meat shield. They are light units, so Marauders don't do nearly as much damage. And they offer good support against Hellions.
Polt sieging up here directly against the tank of QXC. QXC spreading out his army really thin. The Vikings trying to target down some of those, the medevacs here, making sure that units can't drop, but Polt drops the majority of his units. Will this bust work out for Polt? It looks like for now he's going to try to fall back to the northern part of the base and immediately target down the turret, trying to see if he can just pick off whatever he can. The siege tank's still going to work on the production of QXC, as QXC, a lot of his units protecting the orbital command. Is this attack being effective here?
QXC defended that so well all in all. I mean, it really didn't do that much damage. Now Hellions are out in the middle of the field, and I feel like as long as he cleans up the rest of these units, he will be efficient. Look at that. He will be able to snipe off 1 siege tank, and the 2nd siege tank goes down as well. So a great return on that 1 siege tank. My God, QXC is on top of everything, just stopping Polt in his tracks. I think he's well ahead. Let's look at the units tab, income tab, same units tab, 8 to 3 tanks, 8 to 2 tanks.
What's hard to say, what's difficult for QXC is that even though he, had a harvester advantage, Polt caught up, and he has his 3rd base done. Now the big thing about Odyssey and mech in general is that, kind of like Daybreak, there's multiple avenues you can do to kind of avoid your opponent. We've seen a lot of base trades on Odyssey in the past, And Polt is going to be way more mobile, and that's going to be a huge thing. Mobility will play in the big factor, especially because QXC is just sitting back and trying to macro here. And when he does, he's not going to be able to be everywhere at once compared to the way Polt is.
Well, I do want to mention one thing really quickly. QXC is on 4 factories. The 4 factories give him the ability to actually push a lot more aggressively. He can just grab a ton of SCVs, put them on auto repair, and all of a sudden this onslaught of units will be just crushing down on his opponent. One thing Polt normally should have is that upgrade advantage, which he does, but he cannot continue it on. So that does lead, you know, for a pretty nice timing for QXC to push out pretty soon here and go crash down on his opponent's army composition. I mean, while he still has the ability to. You don't want your opponent's siege tank count to get up at this point, just because they work in an exponential type of setting, right? Like,
oh, we do see the Hellions engaging immediately, and a great surround here from QXC, pushing back the initial army. Polt forced to evacuate his own siege tanks. And the hardest thing about mech is direct confrontation. It's just really difficult. Polt did not want to step straight into there, but Polt, he knows that QXC doesn't really have a third up. When he was in the base, he saw no building command center. It's just now finished for QXC, and he's floating over there. So Polt feels like he still has a macro advantage. He's trying to press the timing of it. He scans and sees the siege tanks unsieged.
Ooh. And QXC is doing it right. He wants to take out those medevacs, but he just cannot get there in time. Now he might just go for the base race, knowing that he has a lot more siege tank production than his opponent, but no, he actually steps back all the way. Polt is on equal settings with his supply count, 151 to 155 at this point. Does he have enough units? You know, I would actually say Polt needs a fantastic surround or something. He needs great micro in order to win this confrontation, because QXC just has so many siege tanks here.
Ooh. Yeah, and again, those Vikings are going to be pivotal to a QXC, whether or not in terms of picking out medevacs, just like you're saying, or also getting vision on everything, of course. QXC doing this very methodically. You can see 3 siege tanks at a time, which is really good. Mass on siege is the easiest way to get caught out of position with mech. And I love the fact that QXC is starting to work from the high ground and really pressure Polt, because now Polt, his production is going to start being under jeopardy, as you see supply depots shortening his ability to make units. And slowly but surely, QXC inching his way across the map. We see the units moving towards the south, though, and Polt going to see if he can try to base trade at least a little bit, pull back the units from QXC.
That will pull Polt out of position, but no, he's actually going to go back, and QXC knows about this. So there could be a nasty 3-way surround, but there are so many siege tanks here. I don't know. It's going to be up to Polt whether or not he can actually do this. Oh, the Vikings are going to come over here, and look at this. Polt is crashing through.
Oh no, QXC's not able to protect his tanks whatsoever, and just like we were saying, Polt's now able to get a really good position and completely wipe the army of QXC. Now the biggest thing is mech is hard to rebuild, Andre.
Yeah, so, it is.
It's going to take a while.
But this is a pretty nice time for QXC to actually unsiege all of his siege tanks and just keep the onslaught going. He has a lot of Hellions here, and he has good production as well. His opponent actually had to attack into a ton of units, and he was able to kill off a lot of the medevacs. So I think he should have actually just unsieged and went for it, but no, he just wants to do a little bit of aggression. I think he thinks he's so far behind, but in fact, I think QXC was at a pretty nice advantage at that point.
QXC engaging with his Hellions immediately. Now, oh no, the SCVs at the third. And oh man, those SCVs, they don't even know what's going on. They don't even have their backs turned. And so that's the worst, when the Hellions come from behind, because the SCVs didn't even see it coming whatsoever. Polt losing a huge amount of his economy. You can see QXC, he did end up donating several of his Hellions though. That's not to be discounted, but still, Polt losing 26 workers thus far, and is down 15.
QXC is now caught out of position though. That's a big problem. These siege tanks are able to shell out a ton of damage, and these Marines and Marauders are doing way too much damage to the production line. My God, Polt is on top of everything. This is exactly what you want to do when you're going up against a siege tank type of, or excuse me, a meching Terran. You always want to catch your opponent out of position, and if you can land the key production facilities, then obviously you're way ahead.
Oh yeah, those Marauders scanning and picking off all those units, forcing QXC further and further back into a corner. And QXC losing a lot of his supplies. You can see there it is, GG. Polt takes game number 2. After very good unit movement once again, getting the surround he needed on that army, just like you were saying. QXC still had an opportunity, but in the end was not able to buy enough time.
I think there are a couple of things QXC could have done. One, of course, was what I said before, just push out. You have to do it right now. You don't want the upgrades to get too relevant because obviously 2-2 through 3, that's big timing for Polt. One thing I think QXC could have done, you have that army in that middle, right? That's like zoning out, trying to kill the planetary fortress or the third. Polt has Marines and Marauders all over the place. But more importantly, those Marines and Marauders on the south side, just clamp down on that. Once you kill that, you have free reign over everything. Kill all those medevacs. Your opponent doesn't have mobility, not nearly as well as with medevacs. And then you're able to just push seamlessly. But like that, I mean, he just stayed there way too long. It allowed a bunch of production cycles to occur. QXC did not reinforce, so you're playing with an army that's 2 minutes outdated. It's not going to work out.
So that game and series was brought to you by Twitch TV. Thank you so much for them providing the stream. And where you can buy your subscriber pass, go to NASL.tv for only $19.99, where you get access to the chat as well as be eligible for prizes, the Sunday Showdown, 1080p quality, and of course, love from me and Gretorp. Guys, we'll be back with our next series of the day.
Oh, no, interview, actually.
Oh, we have an interview. After the commercial. Oh, okay. So Polt is going to have an interview. I was assuming not, but that's actually really cool because Polt has some of the best English for any Korean player if you ever talk to him. Very knowledgeable, really smart guy. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with an interview with Polt here at Division 5 NASL Season 3. Don't go anywhere.